You've seen it 1,000 times, but probably never really noticed it. That small white spiral painted in the center of a jet engine, turning slowly when the plane is parked, spinning hypnotically when the turbines come alive. It's simple, almost decorative, and yet every time you walk past an airplane, it's right there, staring back at you like the eye of a machine. Most passengers think it's a logo or some artistic flourish from the manufacturer, but that innocent little swirl is a silent warning, a symbol of danger wrapped in geometry. It's one of aviation's tiniest safety features, and also one of its cleverest. To understand why it exists, you first have to understand what a jet engine really is. From the outside, it looks calm, like a giant metal fan sleeping on the wing. Inside, however, it's a hurricane in a cylinder, compressing air until it's 10 times denser than what you breathe, igniting it with fire, and throwing it backward at hundreds of meters per second. It's organized chaos, controlled violence, and the only reason airplanes can carry hundreds of people across the planet at nearly the speed of sound. And here's the problem: when that chaos is so well designed, it becomes invisible. At low power, a modern engine runs so smoothly that from a distance you can even tell it S on. No vibration, no blur, just stillness. It is the most dangerous kind of quiet, the kind that makes you think it's safe to walk closer. But at idle, that machine is still producing enough suction to pull in a person from several feet away. At full thrust, it could swallow a van without hesitation. Ground crews work in that invisible wind every day, and for decades, accidents happened simply because there was no way to tell if an engine was spinning, until someone decided to paint a spiral. The spiral works on the oldest trick in human perception. Movement catches the eye. A static black fan might look harmless, but a white spiral spinning fast becomes impossible to ignore. It's visual noise, a warning flag written in physics. When the engine turns, the spiral becomes a bright, whirling disc that tells anyone nearby, "Back away, this thing is alive." It's aviation, as equivalent of a snake, as rattle, or a tiger, as stripes, a natural warning encoded in design. Simple, elegant, brutally effective. Different manufacturers use their own versions. Rolls-Royce paints wide, graceful spirals that bloom into white whirlpools when spinning. General Electric prefers tight, hypnotic curls that seem to pulse like strobe lights. Pratt & Whitney favors asymmetrical arcs that flash rhythmically in rotation. Each pattern has been tested under different lighting, rain, fog, and even snow to make sure it stays visible from every angle on the tarmac. Because when your workplace is a storm of noise, jet exhaust, and flashing lights, a clear visual warning might be the only thing that saves your life. It wasn't always this way. In the early days of jet travel, engines didn't have any markings on their fan hubs. They were dark, featureless voids. From a few meters away, even trained technicians couldn't tell if they were moving, and sometimes that mistake was fatal. Several ground incidents in the 1960s and 70s involved personnel being pulled toward or into running engines, misjudging distance or thinking they were shut down. Each tragedy ended with the same report: the engine appeared stationary. The spiral changed aviation safety overnight. What's fascinating is how something so simple became so iconic. Once introduced, every major manufacturer adopted it. Regulations eventually recommended it. Today, almost every commercial jet you've ever boarded carries that swirl, not because it's mandatory, but because it works. Some airlines even stylize them with custom designs, small artistic variations that still follow the same purpose: movement visibility. On a foggy runway, when the world is nothing but gray metal and wind, that spinning white eye is the one thing you'll always see. But here's the beautiful irony: the spiral doesn't just protect workers. It also reassures passengers. People walking to their seats often glance at the engine and see the swirl turning smoothly. It's oddly hypnotic, even calming. The motion tells your subconscious that the machine is running normally. Pilots sometimes joke that passengers have no idea how dangerous that thing really is. They just find it pretty. And they're not wrong. The swirl has become a kind of mechanical comfort. The same symbol that warns of death also whispers safety. There's a psychological side too. The human brain is drawn to spirals because they suggest depth and motion. From ancient art to hypnotist pendulums, spirals have always represented energy, focus, and danger. Seeing one on a jet engine triggers an instinct older than civilization. Your attention locks onto it before you even realize why. The pattern is not there to scare you, it's there to keep you alive. It's designed to hijack your instincts. Of course, modern jet engines now feature other safety indicators, glowing lights, motion detectors, and digital readouts for ground control. But the spiral remains irreplaceable because it works instantly and universally. It doesn't require training, doesn't depend on language, and doesn't need electricity. It just spins. 1,000 years from now, if humanity still flies, it'll still be there. A white swirl in a dark circle, warning us in silence. So next time you board your flight and glance at the massive engine just inches from your window, don't dismiss that tiny spiral as decoration. It's a survivor's mark, a quiet memorial to lessons written in blood and paint. It's the most elegant safety device ever invented, one that uses beauty to signal danger. When it spins, it tells you the truth. The beast is awake, the air is moving, and the miracle of controlled power is already alive beneath your feet. You are staring into 30,000 horsepower, pretending to be calm. To understand why that spiral matters, you need to understand the physics behind it. A jet engine doesn't simply pull air, it devours it. At full power, the front fan can suck in more than a ton of air every second. That air is compressed, ignited, and fired backward at unbelievable speed. The power output is so intense that if the same energy were released into the ground, it could move a freight train. And yet, from the front, it looks like nothing more than a quiet metallic circle turning lazily in the sunlight. That's the deception. The engine hides its fury behind elegance. The spiral is there to break that illusion. It turns invisible motion into something you can see. As the fan spins, the white pattern becomes a bright signal of kinetic life. At slow speeds, it wobbles gently like a hypnotic pendulum. At high RPM, it becomes a perfect disk of white, glowing with pure motion. You don't need to measure it. You just know it's moving and you should stay away. The concept is rooted in human perception. Our brains are hardwired to notice motion faster than color or shape. A spinning contrast pattern, like a spiral, triggers our peripheral vision instantly. That's why warning lights flash, why emergency vehicles use rotating beacons, and why predators in nature move before they strike. The spiral uses the same trick. It commands your eyes before your brain has time to think. For ground crews, that half-second of instinctive awareness can be the difference between safety and disaster. When you see the swirl spinning, your subconscious screams, "Danger!" before logic even catches up. But there's more to it than just safety. The spiral became a psychological symbol in aviation culture, a small reminder that the machines we build are not tame. For passengers, it's mesmerizing. For pilots, it's respect. For mechanics, it's survival. It represents the thin line between calm and catastrophe, a line maintained by design and discipline. That white swirl is a constant reminder that even in an age of automation, a single careless step near that circle could erase a human in seconds. It's the kind of fear that keeps professionals sharp. Interestingly, not all aircraft have them. Some military jets don't bother because their engines are designed for power, not ground safety visibility. But in commercial aviation, where thousands of workers move around airplanes daily, visual awareness saves lives. Every engine start is a ritual, clearance checks, ground crew signals, and that final glance to confirm the spiral is spinning before the pilot brings power up. It's part of the choreography of flight, the silent dance between human and machine, and yet the spiral has become more than a warning. It's now an icon. Aviation photographers chase that perfect shot where the spiral blurs into a white halo, the symbol of power tamed. In some ways, as a metaphor for modern flight itself, humanity painting patterns on the instruments of destruction to make them beautiful. There's irony there and maybe a little poetry. The physics behind the spiral also affects how we perceive motion. At high RPMs, the curved white line becomes a solid circle. This isn't just optical illusion, it's stroboscopic persistence. Your eyes can't process the rapid motion, so your brain fills in the gaps. That's why it looks like a glowing white disk when the engine is running at cruise power, its motion so fast it becomes stillness again, from calm to chaos and back to calm all in seconds. It's like watching time loop on itself, and that hypnotic quality is exactly what makes the design effective. You can't ignore it. Now imagine walking across a noisy, windy tarmac surrounded by flashing lights, roaring engines, and blinding sun glare. Visibility drops. You're tired. Maybe you've done this 1,000 times. You start to tune out the chaos until you catch sight of that spinning white shape. Instantly, your brain focuses, your instincts sharpen, and you remember where you are. In the domain of machines that don't forgive mistakes, that single visual cue pulls you back into awareness. That's the beauty of the spiral. It doesn't ask you to think, it forces you to react. The design itself is deceptively simple. The swirl starts from the center of the spinner cone and curves outward, giving an illusion of depth and rotation. The line thickness, curvature, and placement are calculated to maximize contrast against the dark metal background. Engineers tested dozens of variations before settling on the patterns that work best. They needed something that would be recognizable even at oblique angles, through rain, fog, and jet exhaust distortion. In essence, it had to work under the worst possible visual conditions. And it does. There's even debate among engineers about whether the spiral helps with bird deterrence. Some argue that the moving pattern confuses birds approaching the engine, giving them a visual cue that something dangerous is spinning there. The evidence is mixed, but some airports report fewer bird strikes on engines with high-contrast spirals. Whether it's coincidence or psychology, no one complains about extra protection. It's the kind of feature that might save both metal and feathers at the same time. What makes the spiral fascinating is that it embodies the entire philosophy of aviation engineering. Take a problem, solve it with elegance, and make the solution so simple that people forget how much genius it required. No one talks about the spiral, but every pilot, every mechanic, and every photographer who's ever stood near an engine knows exactly what it means. It's quiet, timeless, and always spinning. An eternal warning painted onto the heart of a machine that never truly sleeps. So the next time you walk down the jet bridge, glance outside your window, and see that white swirl moving like the pupil of a mechanical eye, remember that it's not there for decoration. It's there because physics demands respect, and aviation decided to make that respect visible. It's art that saves lives, beauty born from necessity, and proof that sometimes the most important safety devices are also the most mesmerizing. Every airplane engine tells a story, but the spiral at its center tells the quietest one of all. It doesn't roar like the turbines or glow like the exhaust. It doesn't move air or generate power. It just spins. It's the single, calm heartbeat in a machine built entirely from violence and precision. You could almost miss it, but if you know what it means, you can't unsee it. That simple painted curve is more than a symbol of motion. It's a message, written in white, across the face of something that never blinks. To the untrained eye, it's just an elegant design. To those who work around airplanes, it's a boundary between life and tragedy. The spiral marks where safety ends and chaos begins. On the ramp, workers keep a respectful distance from that spinning white eye. They know its language. They've seen what happens when it stops turning too soon or when someone forgets what it means. The spiral is a wordless agreement between human and machine. I see you and I will stay out of your way. Over time, that simple warning mark evolved into something bigger. It became a visual identity of modern aviation. Photographers capture it at sunrise, the spiral catching light like a halo. Artists print it on posters and t-shirts. Pilots joke about being hypnotized by it before engine start. The design has slipped beyond function and into myth, where safety becomes beauty and beauty becomes habit. There's no rule that says it must exist, yet it's unthinkable for a jet engine to fly without it. That's the mark of perfect design, when the world forgets it was ever optional. It's poetic in a way. Humanity built machines so complex that they needed art to stay safe around them. The spiral is functional, but it also humanizes the engine. It gives a face to something that would otherwise be terrifying, a single focal point in an abyss of steel and suction. When the engine starts to turn, your brain doesn't see mechanical blades slicing through the air. It sees the spiral moving, breathing, coming alive. It turns fear into fascination. In aviation, symbolism runs deep. Every rivet, every panel, every switch is the result of a story, usually one that ended badly for someone else. Safety isn't invented in a lab, it's written in experience. The spiral, too, was born that way. Before it existed, ground workers were injured by engines that appeared motionless. Accidents happened in silence with no sound or warning until it was too late. A few liters of paint changed that forever. In a field where every improvement costs millions, the spiral saved lives for the price of a brushstroke. There's also something profoundly psychological about it. Spirals draw the eye because they mimic how our vision focuses. Your gaze naturally follows the curve inward, tracking movement. It creates tension. You're drawn closer even as your instincts scream not to be. That's why hypnotists use spirals, why galaxies form them, and why your brain finds them impossible to ignore. It's the geometry of attraction and warning in perfect balance. Engineers took that primal reaction and turned it into a tool. The result is safety born from instinct, not instruction. The spiral also symbolizes something deeper about flight itself. It represents motion, infinity, continuity, the endless rotation that keeps humans airborne. Every time a plane takes off, those spirals begin to spin, transforming fuel and fire into lift and life. They remind us that beneath the calm order of air travel lies a storm of spinning metal. The spiral doesn't just warn of danger, it celebrates control over it. Humanity took the wild forces of air and heat and gravity and turned them into something predictable. That's the spiral's real meaning, order carved from chaos. Engineers still debate details like color, contrast, and placement. Some new composite fans are so shiny that the spiral AS effectiveness has been tested again under new lighting conditions. Modern engines like those on the Boeing 787 or Airbus A350 use refined patterns that shimmer at certain angles, ensuring visibility even with advanced coatings. There was talk of digital safety cues, LED rings that could replace paint, but most veterans scoff at the idea. Why replace something that has worked flawlessly for half a century? Paint doesn't fail when the power goes out. The next time you sit by the window before takeoff, look out and find that swirl. Watch it start to spin as the engines spool up. Notice how it shifts from a simple white line to a glowing circle of light, how it blurs into motion so fast it seems frozen again. That illusion, movement so perfect it becomes still, is what aviation is all about. The spiral is the calm eye inside the storm, the visual reminder that the world's most violent physics can be mastered with enough precision. And maybe that's why the spiral feels hypnotic. It's not just paint, it's a conversation between danger and design, between human instinct and mechanical power. It says, I am the limit. You can stand there safe only because someone thought to make me visible. Every time it turns, it repeats that message silently, endlessly. So as your plane races down the runway and the spirals begin their wild dance, remember what you're really looking at. You're watching an ancient idea, the circle, reborn in steel and motion. It's not there to mesmerize you, it's there to protect you. The spiral spins, the engine roars, and together they whisper the oldest truth in aviation. Respect the machine, and it will keep you alive.